What's up, YouTube? Welcome to today's video where I want to discuss why most men waste their lives in relationships. And I'm sure you're probably wondering, well, what the hell am I talking about? Make sure you stay with me till the end because it's going to all make sense by the time we get to the end of this video. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give me a like on this video. It helps it to reach other men that need to see this very important message I'm about to share with them. So without further delay, let's get right into it. So this idea that I want to go with in this video, the main idea is, and I put this in my notes section on my phone when I was doing cardio this morning because I thought it was super important to drive this point home. The greatest enemy of a man's potential is not failure. It is comfort disguised as love. Now, when I talk about relationships, I'm not just referring to being in a relationship with a woman, being married. Those things do apply, but it's really that men waste their lives chasing women, being too tied down in relationships, etc. It's not that marriages and relationships are problems. It's that the way that a man behaves inside of those in the modern world is very flawed. And the reason for this is because, as men, we are not wired for comfort, right? We are wired to seek comfort to some extent because that's what feels comfortable to our nervous system. That's what feels comfortable in the moment. But the problem is that in the long run, comfort is this trade-off we have for growth. So really, you can think of these two as inverse, comfort and growth. That's really the choices you have in life. The more comfortable you are, the less you grow. The more uncomfortable you are, the more you grow. You can even see this one example in the gym. When you grow the most muscle is where? It's the sets where you're taking them closest to failure, and it's those reps within those sets where you're taking them closest to failure. That is a metaphor for life. The more comfortable you are, the less you grow. The more uncomfortable you are, the more you grow, okay? It's a basic idea that I want you to understand here. When you meet a woman as a man, this could be some girl you just started talking to or some woman you started talking to. This could be a woman you've been dating for 6 months. This could be your wife. It doesn't matter. At first, when a man meets a woman, this is usually how it looks in a healthy dynamic. If the man's truly healthy and doesn't have some attachment issues where he's constantly spending time with her. Usually what happens is you meet a woman, you go out with her once, maybe once a week for the first month, okay? That frequency starts to ramp up. Suddenly you're spending maybe 2 to 3 days a week with her. Suddenly now, the relationship's evolving. Maybe you're 6 months in, you spend maybe 4 nights a week with her, 5 nights a week with her, and suddenly this time spent together is now growing, okay? The time spent together where you're with her is now growing. Now you have to look at what are you doing when you're spending time with her? Well, a lot of times you're laying on the couch, you're watching Netflix, you're going out to dinner, you're doing leisure activities, maybe you go on hikes, maybe you're doing things, maybe you're traveling, whatever it is. The point is that very often when you're with her, you're not being productive, okay? And if you retrace your steps to before you met the woman, I can almost guarantee you that your life looked a little bit different. Now, for some men that are, generally speaking, probably not going to be as attractive to women in general, they might have more lackadaisical lives and are spending more leisure time in general, even without women. That is very true. But a lot of times what happens to a man when he meets a woman is he stops doing the things that the woman was attracted to him for in the first place. I've seen this constantly. I've coached physique and fitness guys for a long time, and very often guys come to me when they're single, right? They want to get a better physique, so they hire me. They build this great physique, and then they attract a girl into their life. Maybe they get married, maybe they get a girlfriend, and then what happens? They stop working with me, which is totally fine, but then they're stopping going to the gym. They're stopping eating correctly. The woman starts to lose attraction to them. This happens constantly, okay? Now, it's not every man. There's a lot of men who don't do that, but the average man is doing a lot of things in life to secure a mate, to get a girlfriend, to get a wife, to do these things, because that's how we're wired as humans, just like women in a lot of ways are trying to attract men, especially, if you have to kind of work for it. So what happens when you get into relationships, the devil's in the details. Relationships, marriages, they're not evil by nature, okay? But what happens when you get into a relationship with a woman is at first she's very drawn to the masculine features that you're carrying, whether that's your physical look, like maybe you're a taller, jacked guy, maybe you carry, maybe you have a beard, maybe you have certain traits that she likes your eyes, she likes your hair, it doesn't matter, whatever it is, right? She's drawn to you for certain reasons. Maybe it's your competency. Maybe it's your skills. Maybe you're talented. Maybe you're charismatic. Okay? She likes your personality. There's all these different things that make a woman attracted to you. And she's drawn to you for those things, right? And she's attracted to you. But what happens with time with a woman is that she wants to lock you down. If she really has high desire for you, her real goal is to lock you down and make you hers. And so the way that she does this is she tries to seduce you into comfort, right? She wants you to spend more time together with her. And this is where it's really important to understand this, okay? She wants you to spend more time with her, even though the more time you spend with her, the more unattracted she will become to you. I'm going to repeat that again. The more time you spend with a woman, the more unattracted she will become to you. This is a law of nature, okay? This is the reason why when men and women cohabitate, which means they live together, very, very quickly, these relationships turn sexless or they're not having sex as much because women are not wired to be drawn to men that they're constantly spending time around. And in fact, I'm sure if you back up and think about this too, you'll probably notice that when you met the woman initially, there was probably stronger attraction. You had your highest attraction probably out of the gate. And that's normal because some of that dopamine drive does fade with time. But the way that you can keep that spark alive in a lot of ways is to continue living your life as a man in the way she was drawn to you in the first place. Even when she tells you and says logically, I want you to spend more time with me. Because she's always going to say that. If she loves you, if she wants you, if she desires you, she's always going to tell you, I want to spend more time with you. And if you listen to her words, you will fall victim to believing what she's saying, right? Women oftentimes will say one thing and prefer something else. It's not because women are dumb. It's not because they're stupid creatures. It's because they're humans. We all do it. There's a fascinating study when I was in college that I learned about. I took a course called Consumer Behavior, and it was talking about how people will say they prefer a certain type of pasta sauce, right? They'll say, I prefer like a bold, like robust, like savory type of sauce. And then what they'll do is they would have these people try like 10 different sauces. And oftentimes, the people rated the highest sauce they prefer as something completely different than what they said. It's because we have something called latent and manifest needs. Latent needs are the things in us that we might not have this awareness of necessarily consciously that we actually prefer. We might have these manifest needs that we do, in fact, say we want, and oftentimes, sometimes those things do align, but a lot of times what we say we want and what we prefer are very, very different things as men and women. Okay, that's why you should never, I don't want to say never, that's a bad way of saying it. That's why you should always be very careful with what you hear and listen from a woman that's helping you with attraction advice, because unless that woman understands the underlying wiring of a female, she's going to say things that aren't going to be in alignment with that, because women are driven by their emotions and they're run by their emotions a lot more than us as men. And that's just because of their wiring. That's how their nervous systems are wired. That's how their hormones are, right? Higher estrogen and progesterone makes you more in touch with your emotions, right? Higher testosterone and androgen levels, it's more about like grit and discipline and so forth, okay? That's why reality as men and women is a very different experience. And the problem is that most men look at women as if they're men, right? But women are women and men are men. And when you try to attribute the way you see things onto a woman, it's gonna be, a very different experience than what she's actually experiencing in her body, in her mind, etc., okay? But this is only half of the story. Number one, yes, you do kill that attraction to her by spending too much time with her. But the second part of this is really, in my opinion, the most important part. You see, every day you wake up, you have these choices in your life, okay? It's sometimes very simple things like, do I wear this green shirt or do I wear the blue shirt? Do I put this hat on or I put my hair gel in and spike my hair up? These decisions don't really matter. But the decisions do matter, like, what do I do with my morning? When I roll out of bed, do I lay in bed for 2 hours or do I get up? Do I go do cardio? Do I journal? Do I eat my first meal and then do I get to work, right? Do I then, sit around and play Xbox and watch TV, or do I productively do the work I need to for my business and for my clients, and et cetera, right? Do I go to the gym and train, or do I sit around and eat chips on the couch and watch Netflix? Do I spend my night drinking alcohol and just pissing my life away and being hungover the next morning, or do I do something productive? Do I go out and connect with brothers and we go and do something that's, rewarding for us? These decisions really, really matter a lot, okay? Because what ends up happening is these decisions on a day-to-day basis don't really seem like they matter that much. But there's this certain idea called the compound effect, and there's multiple books written about this that are very good. And it's this idea that, like, yeah, maybe that thing you're doing right now in and of itself is not a bad thing, but over time, when you consistently repeat it, it's a negative outcome in the long run. The same thing's true in the opposite, right? If you repeat something over and over again that's good for you, and you do that for a long stretch of time, it's also very productive for you, right? You can see this with eating, right? When you eat the right foods for longer stretches of time, not like a week, not like 3 days, not like a month, but try like 10 years, well, you see those changes in the physique, you see those changes in the health of a person, okay? That's why habits are absolutely foundational. Great book about this is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I highly recommend you go read it. But the idea is that when you consistently spend more and more and more and more time with this woman, and that time is wasted time, okay? Then what ends up happening is you're now not doing the things that build you and build your highest potential, which, by the way, is the reason you are on this earth. You're not on this earth to sit around and loaf around with a woman. You're not on this earth to only hook up with women. You're not on this earth to please your comfort, to seek pleasure constantly. You're not on this earth for that. You're on this earth to push society forward. You're on this earth to serve the world and with your mission. Your mission connects to something bigger and broader than you, right? You connect their skills, your talent, your passions to something broader than you. That's what mission and purpose is. And the more time you allocate to sitting around with a female and spending every night with her and doing all these things, suddenly you're not doing that stuff as much. You're not doing that stuff as much. And you know what's ironic about that? Even though she says she wants you to spend more time with her, oh, please stay overnight tonight. Please don't leave in the morning. Please don't do these things. You know what? The things that drew her to you in the first place, you weren't doing that stuff. You weren't doing it. Because what she wants and what women are very wired for is comfort. They prefer the comfort of the relationship over, the thrill of it more than anything, because women are wired for domestication more. Women are wired far differently than us men. Us men, just on a purely biological sense, women are wired to find the highest value man that they can attract and retain. That's what they want. All right, they want one man. They don't want 14, they want one man. Now you, on a biological sense, are wired far differently. You're wired to spread your DNA as far and wide as possible, to have as many partners as possible, to produce offspring. I'm not saying you should do that. In fact, I don't think you should do that, even remotely, okay? But understand that your drives biologically are far different than hers. That's what you have to understand, okay? And so when she tames you, so to speak, you're losing your edge in life. Some of your edge in life for your drive to create things comes back to what I said initially. This is why men oftentimes, when they get a girlfriend, they stop doing all the shit that attracted the girlfriend in the first place, because they weren't doing it for themselves. They weren't doing it for their own potential. They were doing it to attract a mate. All right? That's the reality. And it's a truth that a lot of men have to accept. And that's why you have to go inside of yourself and really ask yourself why you do the things you do. That's very important to understand. The more time you spend with her, the less time you're allocating to your purpose in life. I only spend about 2 to 3 nights a week with a woman. That's it. I'm talking max, okay? Max. 2 to 3 days per week. That's it. That's all she gets. You might look at that and say, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, how are you ever supposed to build something, whatever? I promise you, when I was younger and I spent more time with a woman, the relationship was worse. 100%. Because it lacked the dynamic of being a relationship. It became more of a friendship and a companionship. It's not as much of a relationship, okay? And the way that you partly keep that passion, that spark alive, is time spent apart, because a woman's desire grows from you in time spent apart. This is oftentimes why if you ever reconnect with an ex-girlfriend and there's been 6 months, a year, 3 months gone by, whatever, her attraction's so much higher for you, because that time apart created that attraction for her, again, to you. And sometimes for you, for her. You have to understand that the way that modern relationships are framed is not the way that we're wired for. Men and women, to be very clear, okay? When we were living in tribal times, we often, as men, would leave and go and hunt for days, weeks at a time. And we wouldn't be with the women. You know who we spent the time with? Our brothers, right? So too many of you guys spend your time with women when you should be spending more with your brothers, with your friends, with guys that are like-minded to you, okay? We thrive in brotherhood and community. This is another big problem that men are facing in the world that I need to make a video about, is that we don't have as many friends. And when we don't have a brotherhood community, we lack that ability to bond the way that we should, okay? There's certain aspects of dynamics with relationships that should be spent with women, yes, but also with your male friends, with the people in your family, etc. And too many guys are spending all that time that they have that's free time with a woman, and you're not doing anything productive. When you go, oftentimes you hang out with men, your conversations are much more stimulating and they're very productive. Okay, I'm not saying that you can't have that with women. I've definitely had that with women. But there's a certain difference in connection that you have with brotherhood. We are wired for that. You know, we used to go out like in ancient times and go out into battle and be gone for 6 months at a time. men would leave their families and the children. The women would take care of them. They would tend to whatever needs done. Sorry, I pushed the camera. They would tend to whatever needs done, and they would spend more time doing that, okay? And that the idea was that when you were gone and you were sitting around campfires at night, both in tribal times and medieval times, whenever, you were bonding with the men around you, okay? My thing to say here to wrap this up is not don't date women, don't get married. I'm not gonna tell you that. But what I am gonna tell you is that you need to choose how you spend your time very wisely. And one of the biggest time sucks that you'll get into as a man is dating a woman, being married to her, and her taking all of your time, okay? As much of your time as possible. The funny part is that women often will punish you if you actually spend that much time with them. So if you made it to the end of this video with me, thank you for doing that. I hope you learned something from this. I hope you look at your relationships a little bit differently. I hope that you look at your life a little bit differently. You see that opportunity cost that is in front of you every day with the choices you make. Make sure you go down into the description. I built you 2 free resources that will greatly benefit you. The Magnetic Effect free training down there. It's like a 20-minute video you can watch to teach you how to attract everything you want into your life in terms of women, retain the relationships, attract more opportunities in your life. That's the first part. The second part that I have done there is a 30-day magnetic reset plan where you can help to build your body, your mind, and your spirit there. It's a workout program with some other stuff in there that'll really help you. Both of those are free, so go check those out. I will see you guys in that next video.